When you are fearing something so deeply, the universe does not understand the negation of what it is you're trying to say.
Our fear of what it will mean about us,
Right.
if that happens, actually would make it happen more.
But as soon as we say we have to, need to, or should do something, you're taking the fun out of it, and you're taking life way too seriously.
Yeah. Everybody has, as a birthright, the ability to access true awe and wonderment of what it is to be alive.
Truly, like the more you play in life, the more you open up your channel to be creative.
Yes, totally. Don't get lost in the sauce. You are the sauce.
Do a little shimmy, do a little dance. The topic that we're going to dive into is this conversation around making the journey fun.
If you can reframe your healing that way, I don't think you get as hung up on like, this is who I am and this is what happened to me, there's nothing I can do about it. And you're more like, oh wow, like thank you for this obstacle.
Right. And we're back.
Ding, ding. Unbelievable.
This is weird.
It is weird.
This is weird. I feel like we've already been hanging out for like a week, but it's only been not even 24 hours.
I know. When you got in the car yesterday, I was like, you're
She's a real person. That was fun. You slayed at the breathwork class.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anyways, yes. So we're in person, as you can see. We're in the flesh. And we haven't been in person since November, which is, it's August.
You said in the newsletter that it should be criminal. It
Yeah,
definitely should be. Which we already talked about. Like, we're going to do quarterly visits.
Yeah, we're going to make this a regular thing.
Not once a year. That's whack.
It's fucked up. But anyway, so it feels so good to be back in person. It feels just, honestly, it feels different than November. I feel like in November we were like still figuring things out.
So different.
But now this is a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, the conversations we're having now are just so different. I feel like there's a much more like expansive view of the community and everything, which I know we just did the whole recap episode. We don't need to go into that in too much detail, but it's just a completely different vibe. Like, boy, what can change in just a few short months?
It's insane.
It is insane. And I think looking back and being able to be like, whoa, look how much has changed between November and now, gives your mind like more evidence to be like, expand, see past beyond where you're at now, and see the magic that can be created in the universe and like the quantum leaps that can be made. It's so fucking cool. We're not supposed to curse anymore. This is a clean podcast.
We've been getting comments about our swearing. Okay, here's the thing, just to address this, because actually it could go into our topic for today.
There's an elephant in the room.
There's an elephant in the room.
Let's address.
And it's the F-bomb. And listen, we're unhinged, and I just let it rip. However, what I do think is understandable, what I get is that, honestly, I think swearing and comfort with swear words is a little bit of a generational thing, which is fine. No hate. It's just, it's the thing. Different generations have different standards about how they feel about swearing. It doesn't have the same charge. I think younger people, like the Gen Z, millennials, are just more used to it, so it doesn't have a charge. And I think maybe, I don't know. So the point being, I understand it, and I get knowing your audience and whatever, but like the OOOMIE audience is far and wide, and I like to color my words. Honestly, I do. Like, I actually enjoy like a well-placed F-bomb. Like, it feels good. Where I get it is when we're just doing it indiscriminately and we're just like fucking this and fucking that, and like I understand that, but at the end of the day, we on this podcast just let it rip and we just speak from the heart, and F-bombs come from the heart sometimes.
This is true.
It's true.
Yeah.
And whatever, sometimes I know I got a little shock and awe is sometimes a divine thing. So if it breaks you out of a pattern, maybe that's good. Breaks you out of a sleep, and now you're paying attention.
But we are going to be a little bit more cautious.
Yeah, I brought it up to say I am going to think about it more
Yeah.
and be a little bit more cautious. So then I come back to a balanced state of dropping the potty words when they actually feel
Yeah.
right.
I say freaking a lot.
Yeah, freaking is good. Freaking's like a freaking.
Yeah.
It's like good. I feel like though when I say fucking, it's like the equivalent, like FKN, fucking.
You say it so quick that it doesn't have the same meaning.
Yeah, it's not the
Yeah, the
same.
speed of your words definitely changes the meaning of them.
For sure. So anyway, I have been also interested in improving my pronunciation and enunciation. And my little brother gave me a tip of, for just like 10 minutes a day, reading a book and over enunciating every single word that you read.
Wait, I don't like that.
But it's to come back to a regular place where I listen back to our episodes and sometimes I eat my words and I don't say something coherently because I'm letting it rip. And it's just a practice of getting better at pronouncing.
Pronouncing. Pronouncing.
It's pronouncing and
prenatal.
enunciating. Pronunciating is the combo of pronouncing and Oh my God.
You're fired.
Anyway.
You're fired.
Okay. Point is, no, I think it's good to, we speak for a living and sometimes you want to just make sure that you are being clearly understood.
Yeah.
And that you don't just like eat an entire word in a sentence. I've looked back and just completely said like a different word than I meant to say. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to do that thing where I read a book and.
Yeah, we're improving for you guys. We are.
So thanks for the comments about the swearing. I'm serious. I love you guys. Don't worry. It's fine. I appreciate it.
Oh, anyway, we are in person. This is our first time recording in person since November, like we said. And we have been dropping into really deep conversations already. Like we just sat at I was going to say the F word, your freaking dining table for hours, giving each other healing sessions.
Mm-hmm. Truly.
And we had this topic that we wanted to talk about a few weeks ago. And we're like, you know what? Let's save this for when we're in person. And it feels really right now. So the topic that we're going to dive into is this conversation around making the journey fun and how this is meant to really be like a fully immersive, fun game that we're living in right now. And we're going to talk about this because I feel like everyone needs a little bit more fun in their life, especially when it comes to healing and being on this spiritual path. Sometimes it can get a little too serious to the point where you're like, why am I even doing this?
Yeah.
So let's chat about it. What's coming to mind? I know you were sharing a few things you wanted to touch on, but where do you want to start with this?
I think what's coming to mind is, yes, sometimes with the healing journey, it turns into rumination. And rumination, when you get to that state, it should be a little bit of like a red flag on the path of like, let's course correct a little here and remember why we're doing this. And this is where I think with good intention, we go down the healing journey, the spiritual journey, and sometimes it just gets like a little too serious to the point where, you've sort of, I think the saying is you're missing the forest for the trees type of situation where you're looking so much at this one thing that it becomes your whole world. And then you have to pull back and be like, oh, it's this bigger journey.
Right.
And with healing and identifying your limiting beliefs and realizing the ways you've been holding yourself back and all these incredible things to recognize, that the point that you're recognizing it is to get to a point of coming back to love and light and being this like pure, authentic energy of whoever you really are. And what's also coming through is it's like everybody has as a birthright the ability to access true awe and wonderment of what it is to be alive. And the reason why we get pulled into these maybe dark nights or the ebbs and whatever is coming up in our journey is so that then we are shown the ripple effects, like the roots that are coming up from a deeper place to call us back to wonder and gratitude and that aliveness. And I know for sure for me, there's been moments in my journey where I needed to go deeper. I needed to be like in the mud a bit. and it's from the mud that the lotus comes. But the point is that the lotus is sort of like the quote unquote end goal. And yeah, it was in those moments that then I was able to learn how to access like you really can appreciate what it feels like to be in awe and wonder of life, that sort of childlike innocence, when you allow yourself to go to the depths. But the point is, at some point in time, you want to come back out of it and remember that you have a right to access infinite fulfillment and awe and wonder with life. And that is like sort of the goal, if anything, is to come back to that, and knowing that, again, you feel that through its opposite. So that's where you get acceptance for the darker parts, for the heavier emotions, but like knowing when it's time to almost be like, all right, I'm gonna put my gangster rap on, like that meme, and put my big girl pants on and like get out there, you know? Yeah. And I think that's just, this is what the reminder is. It's just like, know when to go deep and be in it, and know when it's time to be like, okay, I let this go. Like I think you just shared with me the thing about the Bashar says, where it's like, maybe I'm starting to identify with the story a little too much of like always healing, and now I just get to put this down and I'm good, I'm done, goodbye, like I'm gonna go move on with my life type of thing.
It's almost like you view this entire experience as just one big game, but then you also, as an awakened conscious person, get to play the game in a specific way. Like you get to know how to kind of like hack the game in a kosher way, in a kosher way. I'm not saying like a manipulative way, but a part of hacking the game is to recognize that whenever you're challenged in life or suffering, you get to move through that in a way where you up level yourself and like it gets even better. And it's like, imagine you're playing a game where you're like, wow, I want to see how freaking far I can get and how fun this can be and how in the present I can be. But then at the same time, it's like, yes, you go into that aspect of up leveling yourself to see how good it can get. But then at the end of the day, remembering that it all is literally just a game. And this is where the lightness can come in with the healing journey. It's like, of course, when we're suffering, we want to dissolve that and access deeper powers within ourselves. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you're doing that work for what? Like how you were saying, it always comes back to the realization of like, we're literally just here to return back to our authentic expression, our love, our light. And without that aspect, you could be going down the healing journey forever and ever and ever, because it really is never ending. And I see it as like, whenever there's a point of like contention popping up in my life, or a point of suffering is probably a better word, that's where I'm like, okay, let's go do the healing work. But it's like doing the healing work very intentionally and then tapping into the game to use the superpowers and like the stripes and the stars that you just gained from the healing. But if we're just always in like the pit stop, changing our tires, like you got to go back out on the racetrack and fucking let it rip.
F1 analogies.
So like Carlos Sainz would do.
Yes. My bae.
Or George Russell with that last race. He didn't go into the pit stop.
That's right.
But he actually won, but then he was disqualified.
That was crazy.
Yeah, that was wild.
He's not having fun with that game.
That was wild.
It was crazy.
Seeing him celebrate with I was cringing the whole time because Peter watched the race late, so we already knew that he was disqualified as we were watching him celebrate. And I'm like, oh my God.
Like, you don't even know what's coming.
No, literally, like he was like so happy. And I'm like, fuck, this is so terrible. I literally couldn't watch. It was like a bad car crash, like cringy.
Damn.
So bad. I felt so bad. Anyway, that was my F1 analogy. Dropping that in there for all the F1 lovers out there. Party of one, just Bella. Party of two, Peter too. But yeah.
Yeah. I also, what's coming to mind is in the healing journey, there's a way to reframe it as being more fun and light. And a way that I've found that to be true is I actually just had a really great human design reading session with a client, and it was cool because she's experiencing the exact perfect obstacles for her to then step more into her design. So it's like really cool because you see how, for example, she has a defined throat center, and when you have a defined throat center, especially if it's connected to like your sacral, for example, you will literally have this energy of like really wanting to use your voice, and kind of it has like a heavier charge in some ways than other people, for example, where it's like basically she's going through a journey of wanting to awaken her voice. And I was like, you are in the perfect place and time and the perfect obstacle of feeling the resistance in your voice, because you're so meant to awaken that voice. And the best way to learn that is to go through the experience of feeling like you want to express, but it's not coming out right. And it was cool because it just takes away this like drama or this feeling of there's something wrong with me. And instead you're like, no, actually this is happening perfectly. And how cool is it that like your soul and the divine has planned out this perfect way that you get to
like
learn.
your level of the game is so
Yeah.
particular to what you were meant to gain from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like if you can reframe your healing that way, I don't think you get as hung up on like this story of like, this is who I am and this is what happened to me. There's nothing I can do about it. And you're more like, oh wow, like thank you for this obstacle, because
Right.
now I see how like it's actually letting me access my gifts, and it's showing me like what I am capable of, or whatever iteration of it is. And that's where, at least, even if it's, you know, a journey that you're in the feels and you're really like in like the demon mode,
I love
the
that.
demons are coming up. At least you have the lens on it.
You're in the pit.
Higher perspective. Yeah, you're in the pit. You're in the box. Box.
Box. That's when they change their tires, guys.
Yeah, they're like, what are they saying?
F1 joke.
But yeah, then it's like, at least I think it's what I'm trying to say is you're maintaining the higher perspective.
Right.
And that's the key. That's the key of how you can be in the dark night, but you have the higher perspective that this is all for you. It's happening for you. And you are going to be, not only are you going to be fine, you're going to be great. And it's going to be awesome.
There has to be a way of seeing what you're saying. Like, okay, let me backtrack, guys, because what I'm saying is, when we are navigating something where we're like meeting our demons and our shadows, and it feels like, oh my God, this healing journey is so heavy. What you were saying of like being able to look at someone's human design and know, oh wow, this is like just a necessary part of your life path for you to get to the point of expressing your gifts in a way that's very divine and individual to your path. For me, I see it as like soul lessons.
Yeah.
So like it's like being able to reflect on my own life, or maybe a client's life, on like, whoa, you came here with this particular soul lesson, and we're getting to the exact same thing, but just from different approaches, because this perspective of being able to notice, oh, I went through this experience in life where it was really difficult and I had this challenge, made me learn X, Y, and Z. And maybe you're still in the process of learning the X, Y, Z, but it's so important to be able to look at that and be like, oh, this was like perfectly designed for me to learn this lesson. And then it invites in a little bit of a relief, because you're no longer a victim to even your healing journey. Mm-hmm. Because I think where we start to ruminate and get lost in the sauce is when, don't get lost in the sauce.
You are the
sauce. Inside jokes, guys.
That's going to be a
episode.
Merch. I think that has to be a merch.
You are
Let
the
us know.
sauce.
You are the sauce.
Literally.
And then it could be like,
don't get lost in the sauce. You are the sauce.
Dude, yes. And it could be like a cool, I feel like we could make the universe look like sauce. So it's like
the front says, don't get lost in the sauce.
And the back says, you are the sauce. And it's like a saucy saucer, flying saucer universe.
Yes.
Let us know in the comments if we should make that merch.
Love. Wait, that would be awesome. Because it actually makes so much sense. It's like, don't get lost in the game of life. Yeah, but then it's like, you literally are
and
life.
There's nothing to get lost in, because you are the sauce.
Yes. Yeah, oh my God. Okay. Bookmark that one. What was I saying?
Fuck, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was saying don't get lost in the sauce. Oh, right. Because what happens when we ruminate is when, let's say you go into a session with a coach, or you have like a moment of reflection where you're like, whoa, I have been telling myself that I'm not enough because I had this experience when I was 5, or and then all of a sudden you're living in the world of, I have a limitation around not being enough. I have a limitation around not being enough, or like I have a limitation around being powerless, or like not loved. And then you're identifying with the fact that you're healing that belief. So I feel like where the fun and lightness comes in, where it's like, whoa, okay, like I'm up leveling in my life. I noticed that there was this weird program where I was perceiving myself through this lens. How divine that I went through all these experiences for me to be able to recognize this. And it's a pure sign that I came here to experience, like how I always say, the opposite of this deeply. Like when you experience powerlessness, it's because you came here to learn the soul lesson of inner power and experience that really deeply in your life. But when you get lost in the sauce, it's like you're kind of like identifying with the fact that, oh, like I have a belief that I'm powerless. Okay, how long are we going to hang out in that for? Because life is happening. So let's go have fun. Let's heal this. Let's get over it. And then let's go integrate it. Go do something that acts in the opposite of what the new, of what the old belief is. And I also want to share here that like, this is a freaking journey. And sometimes we get lost in the sauce, and sometimes we get stuck in a program that's been there for however many years, and that's totally okay too. So be light with this. Again, like all of this is like adding a lightness to this. And I think let's talk a little bit more about how we can make this fun, because let's say you recognize that you had a belief around being powerless. Oh my goodness, I'm recognizing that I have this belief. Is this true? No. Going through the process of dismantling the belief. What actually is true? Oh my God, I'm so powerful. Now let's have fun playing in the world of being a very powerful person and seeing the playground of life that is in front of you. And when you take this approach, there's actually like scientific evidence that when you're playing in life, you're entering into the brainwave state where you're accessing the subconscious. It's like creativity. You're not really programming. You're not really functioning from like the programs and like the beliefs that are hardwired. It's like you're entering into that part of the brain where you're just free flowing, kind of like very childlike, where your consciousness is just taking a back seat. And that is such a powerful place to be in, because you're able to rewire these belief systems. And imagine it's like you get out of a moment of realizing, oh my goodness, I am so powerful. And then instead of making it like, okay, I need to go heal this belief and change this whole thing about my life because this is detrimental to my entire existence. Oh my goodness, I live in this fun world where now I get to play this game with a completely different function within a different program. And that's where you get to make it fun. Like, oh, okay, I'm getting an idea to make a podcast. Let's see how fun I can make this freaking podcast journey. And it's just like that light approach to acting on the new perception and not making it so like, oh my God, I have to rewire this. Like, let's see how freaking fun this can get. And
then it's like the get to energy. The have to versus get to energy, I feel like recently has really unlocked some shit for me.
I want to hear.
And well, it's like, I think there's the ground level of you come to this sort of like neutrality about the things in your life. And we've talked about this in the past few episodes, just where, you know, it's this core of like, from a logic perspective, you kind of just take the meaning out of things by like seeing how, you know, this thing, let's say the easy example is always like money, is like basically you can attach any meaning you want. It could be positive, negative, like it can be anything. Right. Because of that, you effectively see how like, okay, so at a core, the thing is basically neutral. So you just see how like, okay, most things in life are neutral until I apply a consciousness to them, until I apply a meaning to them. So from that place, it's like the business you're starting, the post that you're making, the job that you're showing up to, like, we truly are just doing these things because we get to. And even if it feels like a responsibility, like I was talking to someone who was sharing how, you know, they pay for their daughter's college, and he was framing it as like, you know, like I need to do that. It's the right thing to do, whatever. And I was like, yeah, but you also get to pay for her college. Like you have the ability to. And he was like, wow. And it was just like a tiny little shift that was like a gratitude moment. Right. Because yeah, you can feel the burden of your responsibilities and of having to provide for your family and for your kids and all of that. But you also get to do it, because the thing is, there are consequences, quote unquote consequences, to not doing it. But those are also things that you could neutralize and be fine with. Like, it's like fun. It's kind of funny to think you could be like, you could just get a bunch of, like, you could go into debt and have a lot of credit card debt to pay off. Yeah. society's going to tell you it's not good. It's probably going to be a little rough around the edges, but you could go down that path and you'd probably survive and be fine. And then maybe you'd like learn a huge lesson and you'd pay it off. And yeah, like maybe your dad has a lot of programming where he's like, absolutely do not go into debt. That's the worst thing you could do for your credit score. You're going to fuck over your life. And that's like, sure, there's some of those real life things that are true. And also, I'm of the belief, and I think this is true, like just because it's a consequence that would happen if you don't succeed or this thing doesn't happen to plan, you as a core being remain the same.
Always,
and this is like the worth, the enoughness, the I am. That is always there. So once you establish that and you believe that, even just logically, then everything else is I get to. Right. I get to start this business. I get to go to work. I get to provide for my kid. I get to breastfeed for a year. I get like all these things that it's, again, in the moment, it might feel difficult, but if you can at least have an ounce of, I get to do this, I'm alive, this is all gratitude and a blessing and a cherry on top, like that is awe and that is wonder and that is accessing life from that lens of fulfillment because you're just so grateful to even get to experience it.
And I think that's the key with aligning yourself with a life that continuously gets more fun. Because if you have the get to energy with, let's say, even if you're someone that doesn't enjoy the career that they're in or working a 9-to-5 job, bringing that energy into your current role, even if it's misaligned, but just allowing little bits of gratitude and I get to energy into that is what leads you in life down a path where it starts to get more aligned. And use your own discernment here, because obviously there are things that you're like, I don't know, even that. I'm like having resistance even saying that, because there are always ways to appreciate the experience we're in. And at the end of the day, if you're in that experience, your soul chose that, like how you shared, for a specific reason. Yeah. And even if it's saying I get to go through this experience to know what I don't want.
Yes, totally.
I know we're like reaching here, but like, no, but it's just an example of when you start to introduce that into your life. I think instead of just automatically seeking like the funness and all of the ways that this can be a game, it's like first you have to apply that to like the mundane shit that you would normally overlook. Yes. Yeah. And I feel you, because it's when I say, I'm like, I'm not telling you to go into debt. Okay. I'm not saying that that's not a thing. Like, it's not like I'm recommending that. Okay. Because I can share my own experience of like, you know, like, yeah, sure, there are things in life that universally we would agree, like they're not the most ideal scenario. But I think the thing is, when you have two options of a pathway, of a mindset and approach and a feeling about things in life, the feeling of taking the charge out of making a mistake, like for example, of a going into debt or having some credit card debt, whatever it might be, I think that our fear of what it will mean about us, if that happens, actually would make it happen more. And that has been my experience in real life, is when I was like afraid of what it meant, of how much money I was making, and if I had debt and if I had whatever, I was more in that scenario than when I switched to this idea of not like excusing it and being like, it's fine, I'll just accrue debt, no problem. It was not that at all. It was just very like coming back to a core essence of me as a person throughout this experience is still whole, is still enough. And then like big surprise, when I adopted that, I actually switched and went to the other experience of realizing more abundance, like shifting my relationship to finances or whatever, just as like one tiny example. Right. So it's, again, it's not of saying that you're going to become nonchalant with your life and you're just going to like do this and that because like fuck it, none of it matters. No, it's like you are just seeing that when you bring neutrality to things in life that have become very emotionally charged, like I have to succeed at this or else I'm a failure, or if I do this then that, right? All those things that build up resistance between us and the goal, eliminating that is actually what will help you to interact with the goal and the thing in life in a cleaner way. And then you get to access the awe and the excitement, and you actually will create the positive experience of abundance or wealth or whatever it might be, because you've taken the charge out of it. It's so interesting when you think about the energetics behind that. And I can't remember if we mentioned this on the last episode. So I'm like thinking if I should even say this again, but stop me if I've talked about this already. But first of all, I had something pop up before that, where like when you are fearing something so deeply that you just keep saying in your head, like, this can't happen, this can't happen. The universe does not understand like the negation of what it is you're trying to say. All it hears is what you're not wanting.
Right. Or
Like,
it's just, it's like paying attention to the energy of.
and the thoughts of and the intention.
Yeah.
And a very like charged thought will eventually manifest. Eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you really nurture that and consistently pay that thought, those emotions, it's going to manifest. And it's so interesting to think about that because that's how you kind of run into like almost like karmic loops of
Totally.
what you don't want to happen happening. But again, that takes like consistent nurturing for that to happen. I'm not saying like tomorrow you're going to manifest debt if you think in your head, I don't want debt. But it's interesting. And I think I did mention this on the last episode. But when you say, for example, like you have this narrative in your head that you have to go to the gym, it connects to how you perceive yourself because you're somehow gaining more of a sense of self through that action. And as soon as you tell yourself you have to do something, we put such a heavy charge on these actions because we think they are the thing that is going to one day make us complete or whole. And this is where life becomes not fun. Like even your healing journey, us talking about it like it's a game and it's like, you don't have to do this.
Right, exactly.
At all. You don't have to listen to healing conversations or pay money to work with a coach or do any of this. You don't.
Yeah.
But the consequence, and I'll talk for me personally, because I don't know what your guys' personal consequence of not doing that is living in a state of anxiety and fear. And I would be sitting in a cubicle right now, working a job, thinking I needed to do that. And what I see as the magic that unfolds is just so beautiful. So I lean into this, but you don't have to do this. And where we get to bring in the fun approach is like, oh, let's see how fucking good this can get. Okay, I'm feeling a little bit of a challenge here. Let's dive into it. Okay, I'm perceiving this about myself. Let that shit go. And of course, I run up to my own personal roadblocks of holding on to stuff and definitely still on my own healing journey as well. So I'm right there with you. But as soon as we say we have to, need to, or should do something, you're taking the fun out of it and you're taking life way too seriously. Because I think what you're trying to, not trying to, you said this beautifully, but I think another angle that we could talk about this from is like, we don't actually have to do anything. Like there are people living in Venice, not paying taxes. I'm sorry, this is true.
Yeah.
There are people that, and it's honestly like, there are some people that were living in Venice when I was living literally 500 feet from the boardwalk where I'm like, I am so impressed. Like, I am so impressed. There was this guy, Dancing Dave. He was the happiest person, lived in a car. He would run around the boardwalk and just dance. He didn't do drugs. Like, he was a sober dude, would eat like 2 avocados a day. I'm pretty sure I've talked about him on this podcast before. But like, he unsubscribes from the reality where he needs to like pay taxes and work a job. He's just, I don't know if his like soul is like at a level of advancement where he's like, what? Like, you think you need to make money to live? Like, he literally just doesn't subscribe to that. Like, you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do, but there are consequences. But Dave is showing us, Dancing Dave,
he's fine with it.
that he actually chooses to not have the consequences that we're programming ourselves to think that there are consequences. This goes hand in hand with like working out. I feel like some people subscribe to the reality where it's like, yeah, I just like go on a few walks here and there. And like, I subscribe to the reality where I don't really have to work hard to maintain a physique. And like, that literally manifests for them with obviously like the more just like physical 3D rules that tie in of like, if you, object that stays in motion will, what's the saying?
An object in motion stays in motion.
No. What's the one that's like if you don't move? Oh, you don't move.
An object at rest stays at rest?
Yeah, maybe that. Or like you don't move and you lose it. Something like that. Like if you don't use it, you lose it.
Oh, yeah.
Which can be applied to like brain stuff.
Yes. I know what you mean. I think.
It can be applied to a sedentary lifestyle as well. But yeah, it's just interesting to think about the fun like conversation we're having with taking the fun approach to life, because it all connects.
Yeah.
The have to, need to, should dissolve in every aspect of your life, and you realize that you're literally playing a freaking real life board game of life. And when you take that energy of like, whoa, like we're literally sitting on a couch right now recording a podcast episode because we chose one day to create our reality in this way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the thing is that then you'll be more likely to do the things that are like that are good for you and whatever when you're in that neutral place. So it's like, I think people end up having a healthier relationship to working out or diet or whatever, which we've talked a lot about on the pod, that like you will naturally gravitate towards those things because you've come to a neutral place.
Okay. So the last part of this conversation that I want to talk about is like how you guys can take away some practical action steps from this episode of how do I make this fun? I hear you. I get that this is one big game. I want to integrate this into my life. And I feel like the first step in this, what's coming to mind, and I also want to hear like your perspective on this, is to reiterate what I was saying before about like when you have some sort of like belief that you're working through and wanting to leave in the past, it's acting in accordance to the opposite of that in a fun way, in like a gamified way. Yeah. To gamify your healing journey in a way where it's not so heavily charged, where it's like, let's see how much I can tap into my powers today, and to make the actions that you're taking, the aligned actions, rooted from this fun place of just play and gamifying life. So I feel like we do a good job with that in this podcast journey, and it shows with how that manifests in life, with us reestablishing our belief systems while we're on this journey, but also like it takes the heaviness out of, and I think that's why we really enjoy doing this together, because it is so much, I shouldn't say this. I was going to say it's so much easier, but I don't want to like put that belief out there that like you need another person to make it fun. But of course, connection and community is like it's definitely a part of making things fun. You got to create the party. And sometimes you need some more people than just partying with yourself.
Totally fair.
But yeah, what I was going to say, I think with this podcast journey that we're on, it's like so playful and fun, and it has been the biggest teacher of like the power of play and taking a fun approach to not only your healing but also the business venture that you're diving into, because that energy is injected into the actions that you take, and that has a ripple effect of how your reality manifests. And when you're putting the energy of I have to, I need to, I should, it's going to feel a lot more difficult for you to live in a reality that feels good to you, because you're constantly forcing and thinking that you need to be doing things in order to like appreciate yourself or feel enough or feel whole. So what do you feel like are some practical ways that the OOMIEs can integrate everything we've talked about?
So I think especially with the process of creativity, and we've kind of laid this foundation of, okay, when you neutralize it, when you just kind of like take the drama out of it, take the meaning out of it, that is really key, because then as it pertains to, let's say specifically the creative process, when you get an idea or a hit of inspiration, you really just let yourself explore it with this kind of like childlike innocence and no expectation of the outcome. And that is really key, because for me, that has allowed me to get into a very consistent flow with creation and dance and trying new ideas and putting new offers out there and making programs, like whatever it is, where I just picture it as like this energetic force that wants to come through me. And so I know the inspiration is going to come in through the crown. It's going to turn into like a formulated question or something to explore. And then I just like keep pushing it out, and I just kind of trust that process will yield something, whether it's just enjoyment and fulfillment, or it's like yields a cool idea or a post or an essay or something that I want to bring into the world. So it's like it becomes more fun when you just picture it as the movement of energy, and you're just getting out of the way. You're getting the logic out of the way and just seeing what happens, right? Like the what if energy, just playing and being like, let me just try this out, see how it goes. Okay, I want to do this. That didn't work out. I'll iterate over here. And that has allowed me to tap into a creative flow that obviously can ebb and flow and sometimes like isn't always there, but it tends to kind of like up level in its consistency when I'm really viewing it as play, like when it's the game and it's just testing things out and really focusing on like if you are becoming attached to the outcome and the result, to just get curious about that, like take the step away or address the subconscious belief or just like keep going. Like if the thing doesn't work out, just try again and build that muscle of just doing it to do it and to create.
I love that. I love how you're tying this into creativity because it does feel like they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Truly. Like the more you play in life, the more you open up your channel to be creative.
Yes, totally. Yeah. That's the other thing actually too is there is a very real trick to being in that playful flowing energy. And then that is where you actually end up making great work and creating something awesome is when, you know, you weren't like trying to freaking squeeze it out of you. You were just sort of like on the walk in nature or dancing or enjoying your breakfast. Like that is also when all those magical things of like miracles drop in. And I mean, miracles can come in at any time, but the point is like those synchronicities I think tend to happen when we're just in that, you know, wave of life and living and experiencing. And I think it can help people to access it through this like quote unquote childlike energy. Although I honestly think that that's just innate to all humans, no matter what age you are. But kids have an easier time doing it because they're like living in that theta, like imaginary world.
Right. Even think about like with dating, if you're like clenched fists, I need to find my partner.
Yeah.
It's like that's the energy that you're putting out there. And then the relationship is going to be a reflection of that. Whereas when you take it as this like playful approach of like, I'm going to go play and meet someone and go on a date. And how fun is this that we get to go on a date with this new soul that I've never met before? And what is this like fun, immersive experience of getting to meet someone like with fresh eyes and meet someone that you've never talked to before.
Right.
Everything can be seen from the perspective of like, I have to, I need to, I should, or like, whoa, it kind of is crazy when you realize you can look at every single part of life with that like wonderment type of vibe.
Totally.
And it's almost like what babies do.
Yeah.
When they're like exploring their bodies. Or I had a client the other day that was saying her newborn, like, it's so beautiful to witness life through his eyes because he was like picking up a leaf and was just staring at the leaf like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah.
And people always say that when they have babies, it's like you get to see the world through their eyes of like when they're walking around like, oh my God,
truly,
like cloud. It's like, what the fuck is that? You're
truly.
right, look at that cloud.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that's coming through is actually intuition, because when you follow your intuition and you use your intuition as this compass, I think it really naturally unlocks that flow and fun that life gets to be like. And it's just a frictionless way to be living, where when you tune into that, you know, you're tuning into something that's both very real and happening in the body, but is also very attached to the invisible, to the fields, to this universal energy that is in us and all around us. And I think intuition is very much like that phone line to the divine and to that energy where, you know, beautiful, cool things happen. And yeah, I definitely think it's like a tangible practice. Taking more actions that come from your intuition will for sure expand the wonder in your life. And that's when you then get open to what is possible that you couldn't even plan, right? Like this whole podcast venture and everything that we do is so intuitively led that's why we're sitting here a year later and we're like, we couldn't have planned this.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's crazy. So I feel like some closing messages that we could send where in your life, guys, are you being called to play more? Are you being called to loosen up a little bit? And I say that with love. I say that with love. And maybe just right now, if you're in a private space, or maybe if you're in public, do a little shimmy, do a little dance, let it
Make
loose,
a little love,
let it jiggle. And I thought that was going to be a lot more profound, but that's what I got for you. Let it jiggle, let it loose, and just tune in to where in your life you may be actually getting a little lost in the sauce by making the 3D. Like, this is where the paradox comes in, because it's like you learn about this spiritual healing and then all of a sudden it's like that is your world, but then it's like you're learning about the programs in the past and it's like, oh, I'm like so in the 3D and this is gonna happen. It's like, find your middle ground of using both for the powers that they hold. Like, the 3D is fucking fun. I'm sorry, but like,
it is.
This is
sick.
fun. Like, we're in this. I heard someone say the other day that the world is terrible, and I'm like, what? No. What? I get that there's darkness, but like, this shit hits.
Yeah.
We're not high, I swear. Let's close this out because I feel like we're going to get a little too unhinged now.
But it's true.
Don't get lost in
the sauce. You are the sauce.
Let it jiggle.
Let it wiggle.
Let it loose.
Send it and get out of your fucking mind.
Ayo.
That's how you do it.
Throw that on a t-shirt.
Throw that on a t-shirt, why don't you? You're the sauce, get out
wink,
of your
wink.
mind. And we're back. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. We're done. Cut off. Right. Okay, bye guys. Thank you so much for listening. We love you so much. Let us know if you enjoyed this episode. Send it to a friend. Rate, review, subscribe, do all the things. Send us a message. Send us messages. We literally read all of them. You're not overwhelming us. We want to read all the messages, okay? And thank you. I think we swore less in this, so that was good.
I said it a few times.
High five. Less swearing.
I think I said it more than you.
Yeah, probably. That's fine. We're working on it.
Next time.
Okay. Ding!
Bye.